Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya al-mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, we are still discussing of chapter 4 of this book, the holistic human behavior and loss of learning, and we have covered both classical and part of operant conditioning, because everything in this world operates on the basis of conditioning, whether it is classical operant conditioning or other associative type of conditioning, which we can discuss in a far later stage. Today I'm going to talk about the nature of reward and punishment. This is Prof. Mahdi Jenkins. Reward is often referred to as reinforcement. So in psychology we use the word reinforcement. In some circumstances the word reinforcement is more appropriate than reward. Reinforcement is always increases the probability that a response will occur in the future given the similar circumstances. That means when you reward or you reinforce, that behavior pattern is more likely to become an outcome more and more. Punishment always decreases the probability that the response will occur in the future given similar circumstances. So punishment is the opposite. Reward increases responding, punishment decreases responding. So reward increases responding, punishment decreases responding. As we discussed in operant conditioning, many of the examples that I have given is about learning experience of animal. Alright, but in operant conditioning, it is very, very relevant to most human conditioning and behavioral pattern which we'll learn in terms of how we learn. That's why the loss of learning is always connected to, in psychology, back to classical and mostly operant conditioning and associative learning. So in conditioning, we have this term called holistic analysis. Holistic analysis is a dynamic process. It is always undergoing change. Any form of material existence is constantly receiving many stimuli from the environment. We are receiving all kinds of stimuli from the environment, which I have discussed in many of the earlier videos. If the particular material form is a rat, as the example that we have given earlier, the holistic analysis takes place mainly in the brain. There are many stimuli reaching out to the brain. So this interaction of the brain gives the conditioning of that rat to behave in a certain way that we have already conditioned that rat to do. So in addition to perception, interpretation and memory, which are crucial factors at animal level, self-reflective consciousness is at the human level. So we have free will, we have what? Self-reflective consciousness. That means we are conscious of what we are doing. We also can understand our free will to exercise, to do that behavior or not to do the behavior, and also the nature of understanding the grandeur of the scheme of existence. So we have what we call self-reflective consciousness, which I have mentioned in an earlier video of. It includes the spiritual domain, the emotional domain, the roh, the qalb, the akal. These three constitute the factors that is really in relation to our brain. It is connected to the higher level of thinking, higher level of understanding. We call it realms or nature. So we have this self-reflective self-consciousness. So self-reflective consciousness always allow a much greater range of variables to be considered by the holistic analysis which take place in the human brain. So the human brain is so unique. That's why even up to now the science of neurology could not explain many things. We are getting more and more information, we are getting more and more confused, which is actually quite a paradox. But the self-reflective consciousness become, in effect, is another source of the environmental influence. So from perspective of positive psychology, you can use this beyond the scope of just making a decision or being conditioned, but you overcome it. And how to overcome it? The effect of self-reflective consciousness is the third factor of this environmental influence, and we call this inner speech. That's why we have this concept of our model. You can see our model. We have at the last aspect is an independent aspect of what we call inner speech, consisting of our spiritual, emotional and mental domain that is exercising within our physical system, including our brain and all other aspects, connecting to the universe. Alright, and how and what is this mechanism is fully explained within the metaphysics of Islam. So this cannot be explained in terms of, for example, operant conditioning. That is why self-reflective consciousness provides a new source of stimuli which are perceived, interpreted, and matched against previously stored information during the holistic analysis for human beings. All right? Just as in the same manner, we have other stimuli, whether from the environment or whether from the or the intersocial environment that impinge on our nature of behavior as well as conditioning. Okay, so that gives you some ideas, some taste of the nature of, at the level of positive Islamic psychology, we have a higher understanding in terms of the need for operant conditioning, but we have to go back to the basics. So in this book we describe much deeper into the Islamic aspect, but you must master the basic aspect of reward or reinforcement and punishment, and I'm going to give you a short video explaining this whole greater understanding for us to be able to achieve a better balanced view in terms of the field and the science of psychology, especially Islamic psychology, the framework of Islamic psychology, which all of you will have to think about, develop. If you are a psychologist or a student of psychology doing a master's or PhD, think about how this integration can take place, because the aspect of conditioning within the framework of operant conditioning is good, that is a basis, but it is only working on the material plane. We are working on the spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical plane, which is integrative. That's why we call it holistic human behavior.
Classical conditioning is a little more complicated than that, but that's basically what it boils down to. In this video, I want to talk about a concept called operant conditioning. And what operant conditioning basically focuses on is the relationship between behavior and their consequences, and how those consequences in turn influence the behavior. So I'm going to write here, behaviors have consequences. And in terms of operant conditioning, there are two main types of consequences. You have reinforcement and punishment. And when it comes to reinforcement and punishment, there are two types: positive and negative. And the same goes for punishment. There are two types: positive and negative. So we're going to go over each one of these in the context of an example. And we're going to use a goal behavior or a target behavior to help solidify this example. So I'm going to say the goal behavior for this is safe driving. Safe driving. So we see these two types of consequences, reinforcement and punishment. What reinforcement means is it's going to increase the tendency that the goal behavior will occur again. And you can do that through positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. When you see the word positive in this context, it means something is being added. And something is being added in positive reinforcement to increase the tendency that the behavior will occur again. Negative reinforcement means something's being taken away in an effort to increase the tendency that the goal behavior will occur again. So for positive reinforcement, since we're adding something, let's say if someone's a safe driver and they're following all the rules, they're rewarded with a gas gift card. Free gas, sounds good to me. So I'll write gas. A gas gift card is being presented in an effort to increase the tendency that the safe driving behavior will occur again. Now, negative reinforcement means you're going to take something away in order to increase the tendency that the safe behavior will occur again. So, one really common example is when you get into your car, before you put your seatbelt on, here's a seatbelt, sometimes you'll hear a loud buzzing sound. And it's very annoying. That buzzer just keeps going until you perform the behavior of putting on your seatbelt. And performing the behavior of putting your seatbelt takes away the sound of the buzzer. So that taking away of the sound of the buzzer is the negative of negative reinforcement. And it's negative reinforcement because you're taking something away, that's the buzzing sound, in an effort to increase the behavior that safe driving will occur again. Punishment, on the other hand, means it will decrease the tendency that a behavior will occur again. So if we're going to use the example of safe driving, we'd want to punish behaviors that are unsafe. So positive punishment means something's being added in an effort to decrease the tendency that a behavior will occur again. So let's think of an unsafe behavior in terms of driving. One of those examples could be speeding. And what happens when you speed? Sometimes when you get caught speeding, you'll receive a speeding ticket. So if you get caught speeding, a police officer will present a ticket to you. So something's being added here, as being the ticket, in an effort to decrease the tendency that that unsafe behavior will occur again. So that's why people get speeding tickets. On the other hand, negative punishment means something's being taken away in an effort to decrease the chance that a behavior will occur again. So if you want to decrease an unsafe driving by taking something away, one extreme example is sometimes when people consistently break the law and they show that they're not safe drivers, courts will take their license away. And by taking away their license, they're decreasing the chance that they can perform more unsafe driving. So these are the four types of consequences. You have positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. And one last thing I want to illustrate here is that all of these have a reciprocal relationship. All these consequences influence and shape the behavior. And that's what makes operant conditioning unique. It's this relationship, this reciprocal relationship between behavior and consequences, and how these behaviors are all influenced by their consequences, and these consequences will influence the behavior. So these are the different types of reinforcement and punishment.